Hi everybody, I wanted to go over the ICD-10 CM book for you. I apologize that I only have the 2018 edition with me because when we left the campus I didn't take my ICD-10 book with me, so I'm using one of my older ones that I had here at the house. But as for other than the year, the setup is very similar, so you should be able to follow along with yours. I just won't be able to tell you pages specifically. So ICD-10 is set up in a similar format as CPT was. And it does give you a table of contents, so you're able to kind of look up certain things specifically. You'll notice that these have a lot more chapters than CPT did. In CPT they called them sections, we call them chapters in ICD-10. There's 21 chapters, and they all have a letter at the beginning of each of them. The only letter that's not used is U. And then it has pages that talk about the symbols and conventions. I recommend that you look over these. If you've watched my other videos, you might have heard me talk about the red dot before. So in ICD-10, when you see a red dot in front of a code, red means go. So that code is not specific enough the way that it is. Versus, see how that one there does not have a red dot. So that would be as specific as the code needs to be in order to qualify to get reimbursement. If you see a red dot and an X in front of it, like this one, then that means that you need a placeholder X, which I talk about in the one video for the class, but then there's also what a placeholder X is in your ICD-10 book as well. And then you'll also see some other symbols and conventions that I talk about in the other video, but you can take a look at these as well. After that goes the updates. Yours would say 2020 at the top. For you, this doesn't really mean much because this is the first ICD-10 book that you've ever looked at. But for me, this is the first section that I go to whenever I get a new book, because they bring out a new book every single year, just like CPT. And this will tell you like what's changed, what's different from the previous years. So this is like the very first thing that coders tend to go to and make sure that they have everything that they need. After that, you have your guidelines, which have the red like outline toward the end here. The guidelines are basically the rule book for ICD-10. They tell you all like the rules that you would need to follow, what everything means in them. And they're split up into 4 sections. With outpatient coding, you're going to use all 4 sections, but with inpatient coding, you would only use sections 1 through 3. Section 4 has more specific information just for outpatient coding. And we have a chapter that goes over these guidelines as well. After that, there's the green section, which has anatomy illustrations. Sometimes a doctor will give something very specific that you don't maybe not know. So you can look at these anatomy pictures and kind of use them to help you find some terms or to look at anything that you need. So they're there to help you to try and find a code. Not everyone uses them. We have the lovely advantage of being able to use the internet to find things out now as well. And then after that, you have this gray section. This is your index for the diseases. They're in alphabetical order, and you'll notice that there's red terms, those are your bold main terms, and then all these other words are subterms. And you'll notice too that they have these 2 little lines. These are meant to kind of help you keep your place. Because the indentation is so small, they want you to be able to see like the indent over. So this is your main term, this is the subterm, and then the next little line here is the sub-subterm. So it's meant to kind of help you keep track as you're going along. And when you're looking stuff in the index, you have to kind of think of it as in a different way than what you may originally think when you're looking something up. It's almost backwards. So for instance, if you're looking up a fracture of the femur, then you go into the word fracture. So you're looking at what the problem is, not where the problem is. And we have a few assignments that go over that in more detail too. But you can like look up a fever, but if it were a specific type of fever, you would still go to fever and then look underneath that. A part of the index is the table of neoplasms, which is this blue section, and you'll notice that it's separated into 5 columns instead. So instead of them trying to put the N neoplasms in the index, because this actually is a part of the index, they made this table separate from it. And it's broken down into malignant primary, which if there doesn't tell you anything and it just tells you it's malignant, we always assume it's primary. Malignant secondary, which means it's metastasized or it's the secondary, was caused because of another cancer. Cancer in situ is only used if the physician actually writes it that way. It just means that it's an encapsulated cancer, so it's malignant, but it's not moving anywhere. Benign means it's not cancerous, so it'd just be like a benign tumor. Uncertain behavior is whenever like it looks like it was benign, but it has some malignant tendencies. It's typically worded this way if they want it to be coded that way as well. And then unspecified behavior is whenever the physician doesn't tell you what it is. So, it's broken down in alphabetical order as well, but this is saying like what type, like where the cancer is, because the neoplasm is basically telling you it's a neoplasm, and then you look for the location of that neoplasm. And then this magenta looking color is the table of drugs and chemicals. It's set up similarly to the neoplasm table, and it's also considered to be a part of the index. They just keep it separate because it's so extensive. With these ones, the drugs and chemicals are generic, so if you're given a brand name, you have to figure out what its generic name is first. And again, they're in alphabetical order. And these, they're broken down into what types that they are. You can say hello to my dogs. So, poisoning, accidental, unintentional. This is the other one that we go straight to if there is no other information. So we assume it was unintentional if there was poisoning. And then poisoning, intentional self-harm. So they actually meant to like commit suicide by taking chemicals, or something along those lines. So it would be the self-harm. Poisoning assault. If you ever think back to like the anthrax that was being used, that's an example of poisoning assault. So it's basically using some sort of drug or chemical to attack someone. Undetermined. This is whenever they actually use the word undetermined. If we don't know, we go back to the unintentional rather than using the undetermined. So the doctor will put that they have an unknown origin or something. Adverse effect is the side effects of the drug. And underdosing is whenever they should have so much in their body and they don't have it. After that, you have the external cause of injuries index, and that has your orange things. So external causes kind of tell us a little extra story. So what happened whenever they got injured? These are extra, and some places do not require them. A lot of the funny codes that are in the module that you can take a look at, they came from these. So if like one of them is burning on water skis due to a fire so you would have the first code as the burn, and then you would say that they were water skiing and go from there. And if they were working at the time. And the reason why we have a code is because someone did something. So there's a lot of interesting codes in that one. Then we get into the tabular. The tabular is all these colored pages. So these are actually where the codes exist. You use the index at the beginning of the book to help you find where code is. So for instance, hypotension, and it was drug induced. So it tells you, go to I-95.2. So then we would go back into here and we would find it, the I code. And I-95.2, hypotension due to drugs. And it tells you this, use additional code for the adverse effect. So you would need to have 2 codes for this one. But you don't see a red dot next to this. So other than it telling us that to use additional code, you're good to go with this one. If it had a red dot to it, like this one, other hypotension, this is not specific enough the way that it is with the I-95.8. So you would have to use 0.81 or 8.9 or 0.89 to explain what that other hypotension is. Remember, red means go. It's not specific enough. Even though the example may not be as specific as like what you want to. So then you can pick like unspecified if that's one of the ones that are listed. The chapters are broken down, which I explain in the chapter 2 video, so I'm not going to get into that too much. But I just kind of wanted to give you an example of what the book looks like and how to go through it. If you run into any questions while you're looking stuff up, feel free to send me an email. I can set up like a specific Google chat to go over it, or we can try and work through it over the phone if that would be easier as well. This actually was a book that one of my students used, and she tabbed them out so it was easier to get to the chapters. So remember, your book is yours, so however it makes it easier for you is fine. I like to have my books, my editions, come with tabs that actually go inside the book as well. So it is a nice feature and it's able to just get to wherever you're looking for much easier than looking. But that is also why they color-coded it, so that way you can easily see when a chapter ends and when another one begins. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask me, and have a good day.